Good afternoon on this Tuesday actually, June 17th. I'm Yuna Naufal. These are today's headlines. Education Minister Ilyas Bousaab says the academic year would be plunged into chaos if Parliament fails to approve the controversial salary hike. Militant seized most of a Shia majority town in northern Iraq, government official says, as they attack and take control of parts of the central city of Baquba. Activists say a car bomb explodes in eastern Syria near the border with Iraq, killing at least 5, including a local rebel commander. Education Minister Ilyas Bousaab says the academic year would be plunged into chaos if Parliament fails to approve a controversial salary hike. If the salary scale faces difficulties, we are heading to a big problem. Hopefully, we cannot reach, Bousaab said following an inspection tour of exam centers. Official tests for grade 12 students kicked off on Tuesday after grade 9 students completed their brevet exam. Bousaab nevertheless said he was constantly in touch with all the parties in the hope of reaching a happy ending to the long-standing pay hike crisis. He also said he hopes that a positive result in the salary scale will emerge in the next 2 days. If Hezbollah had not gotten embroiled in the war in Syria, the Islamic State of Iraq and Greater Syria would have taken over Beirut by now. The resistance party chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah said, if Hezbollah had not intervened in Syria the right way and at the right time, ISIS would be in Beirut now, Nasrallah told leaders of Mahdi Scouts in remarks published in a Safir newspaper. He questioned the role of some Gulf and regional countries in the violence and Iraq and raised doubts about the U.S. position on what is going on there. He nevertheless lauded the position of the religious authorities in Iraq's Shia holy city of Najaf, saying their call to arm against terrorists was not intended to protect a particular sect, but to protect the entirety of Iraq. Foreign Minister Gebran Bassil expressed relief over the ongoing dialogue with the Future movement, reiterating complete rejection of electing a random president just to fill the vacancy at the helm of the Christians' most important post. We are seeking a fruitful partnership with the Future movement, which must have principles that are ought to be respected, Bassil said in comments to As-Safir. He considered that such a partnership should lead those who are strong to power in order to build a stronger country. Sources told the newspaper that the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon, David Hale, lauded during a meeting with Bassil the dialogue between FPM leader Michel Aoun and Future Movement chief Saad Hariri. Over the past 2 months, the parliament convened 5 times to try to elect a successor to Sulaiman, but failed during the last 5 sessions due to a lack of quorum. Prime Minister Tamam Salam issued a memo this morning shortening the working day for government employees during the holy month of Ramadan, set to begin later in June. State institutions and municipalities will work between the hours of 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. during the holy month of Ramadan, 2 hours less than the regular shifts. State institutions usually open at 8 and close at 2 p.m. Ramadan this year is expected to begin on or around June 28th. Militants have seized most of a Shia majority town in northern Iraq. A government official is saying that as they attacked and took control of parts of the central city of Baquba, security forces and civilian fighters still hold parts of Tel Afar in Nineveh province along a strategic corridor to Syria, according to a deputy provincial council chief, Nuruddin Kabalan, in fighting that has killed dozens of civilians and combatants. Kabalan said militants controlled most of Tel Afar and the surrounding area, adding there were pockets of resistance and that soldiers, policemen and residents held on to parts of the airport. 50 civilians were killed in the violence, along with dozens of militants and members of the security forces. Militants in the past week took control of the vast majority of the province as part of a swift offensive that saw them seize Mosul as well as 3 other provinces. And as Sunni militants drive through Iraq with a view to control Baghdad, the Obama administration says it would not rule out potential military cooperation with Iran to stop the rampage. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said in an interview with Katie Couric that the U.S. is open to discussions with Tehran if it can help end the violence.
We're open to discussions if there is something constructive that can be contributed by Iran, if Iran is prepared to do something that is going to respect the integrity and sovereignty of Iraq and the ability of the government to reform.
Can you see cooperating with Iran militarily?
At this moment, I think we need to go step by step and see what, in fact, might be a reality. but I wouldn't rule out anything that would be constructive to providing real stability, a respect for the Constitution, a respect for the election process, and a respect for the ability of the Iraqi people to form a government that represents all of the interests of Iraq, not one sectarian group over another. It has to be inclusive, and that has been one of the great problems of the last few years. I think we are open to any constructive process here that could minimize the violence, hold Iraq together, the integrity of the country, and eliminate the presence of outside terrorist forces that are ripping it apart.
Lindsey Graham said the seeds of 9/11 are being planted all over Iraq and Syria.
Well, there is no question but that there are people plotting against the United States in different parts of that region.
But what about particularly Iraq and Syria and ISIS?
Particularly Iraq and Syria and ISIS. They clearly are focused not just there, but they're focused on trying to do harm to Europe, to America, and other people. And that's why we believe it is so important for us to be engaged and to be leading an effort to try to deal with this, and that's exactly what we're doing. Well, they're not the whole answer, but they may well be one of the options that are important to be able to stem the tide and stop the movement of people who are moving around in open convoys and trucks and terrorizing people. I mean, when you have people murdering, assassinating in these mass massacres, you have to stop that. And you do what you need to do if you need to try to stop it from the air or otherwise. If you know, Americans obviously feel very powerfully about not putting boots back on the ground in Iraq. So we'll consider what options are available to us.
Activists say a car bomb has exploded in eastern Syria near the border with Iraq, killing at least 5 people, including a local rebel commander. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says that the bombing occurred in the eastern province of Deir ez-Zor, near the offices of the Al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front and another group, Ahrar al-Sham. The observatory, which relies on a network of activists on the ground, says Ahrar al-Sham, commander in the area, and an Islamic judge affiliated with the Nusra Front were among those killed in the blast. There was no claim of responsibility for the bombing, but the two groups have fought against a rival Islamic faction known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Greater Syria, ISIS, in the Syria's oil-rich province since April. Coming up next, after 90 brutal minutes of end-to-end action, the Americans emerged with a thrilling 2-1 win over Ghana, FIFA 2014, when we come back. Welcome back. Israeli forces detained more than 40 Hamas militants, according to the military, in a West Bank crackdown on the Islamist group that is being conducted in tandem with a search for 3 missing Israeli teenagers. Israel blames Hamas for the abduction of the Jewish seminary students who went missing last Thursday. The Islamist movement, which does not recognize Israel's right to exist, has neither claimed nor denied responsibility for the kidnapping. Since the disappearing of Gilad Shaar and U.S.-Israeli national Naftali Frankel, both age 16, and Eyal Yifrah, 19, Israeli raids have spread from house-to-house searches through darkened homes in Hebron, a Hamas stronghold, to other parts of the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Information Ministry accused Israel of inflicting collective punishment on Palestinians in the territory. An entire population is being held hostage to the whims of the Israeli occupation, he said. Egypt's new cabinet was sworn in by the country's newly elected president, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The swearing-in ceremony took place at the presidential palace in the capital, Cairo, and state television aired live footage from the swearing-in early in the morning hours. The government of the 34 ministers, including 4 women and several technocrats, is led by Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab, who also served as the interim premier for the past 5 months. There are 13 new faces on the list, and it's also the first cabinet under Sisi, the country's former army chief and defense minister, who himself was sworn in a presidency in earlier June following the landslide election victory last month. He has pledged to put security and restoring the country's battered economy at the top of his agenda. U.S. and Iranian officials held talks over the advance of Islamist insurgents in Iraq, the first time the two nations have collaborated over a common security interest in more than a decade. The discussions in Vienna took place on the sidelines of separate negotiations about Iran's nuclear program, as Barack Obama told Congress that he was deploying up to 275 military personnel to Iraq. The developments come amid conflicting signals in Washington over the extent of any coordination with Tehran over the crisis in Iraq. This also comes as Britain says it is ready to reopen its embassy in Iran, according to Foreign Secretary William Hague. At least 10 have been killed in an overnight attack near Kenya's coast, police say, with Somalia's al-Qaeda-linked Shabab rebels claiming responsibility. Police said gunmen, apparently part of the same group that massacred close to 50 in the town of Mpeketoni overnight on Sunday, attacked a village in the same region on Monday and left 10 dead. They carried out another attack last night, and they killed 20 people, mainly police and Kenyan wildlife wardens. The commandos have been going to several places looking for military personnel, according to Shabab's military spokesman, Abdulaziz Abu Musab. After 90 brutal minutes of end-to-end action, the Americans emerged with a thrilling 2-1 victory over Ghana. U.S. fans were screaming for revenge after the Black Stars eliminated the Americans from the last 2 cups. Clint Dempsey scored a shocking goal a half-minute in, but the U.S. could not hold on to their lead. Captain Dempsey ended the first half with a tissue up his nose to stop the bleeding after John Boyce kicked his face during a battle for a header in the 31st minute, and he was struggling for breath in the second. Andre Ayew tied the score in the 82nd minute after a brilliant backheel pass from Asamoah Gyan, who has eliminated the U.S. 4 years ago. And then, just 4 minutes later, 20-year-old John Brooks rose to head in Graham Susie's corner kick from 8 yards, the first substitute to ever score for the United States in 30 World Cup games over 84 years. The defender, an unexpected addition to the American team sheet, was so overcome he fell to the field and was unable to move even after teammates climbed off the dog pile. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Education Minister Elias Boussab says the academic year would be plunged into chaos if Parliament fails to approve the controversial salary hike. Militant seized most of Akishiab, majority town in northern Iraq, a government says, as they attack and take control of parts of the central city of Bakuba. Activists say a car bomb explodes in eastern Syria near the border with Iraq, killing at least 5, including a local rebel commander. Those are your Tuesday headlines live on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal signing off. Take care.